Welcome to Komando On Demand Insider, your fast-paced weekly update straight from Kim's desk to your ears. I'm Mike James, and in just a bit, Kim talks with Joe Pag. Now, if you don't know who Joe Pags is, he's a nationally syndicated radio show host and a friend of the show, and Kim and Joe are going to cover everything from 5G, how AI is helping in forecasting the spread of the coronavirus, even spotting fake news and fake ads, much, much more. That is just moments away. And in the second part of the podcast, Stanford Hospital is often called the future of hospitals. It's in Palo Alto, California, and they spent over $2 billion building the thing, 824,000 square feet, a new level 1 trauma center and an emergency center, and they have all kinds of high-tech equipment to make the patient experience better. We are honored to have the Vice President and Chief of Applications at New Stanford Hospital with us. His name is Gary Fritz, and that's coming up in the second part of this podcast. Now, a quick reminder before we get started, this is not the Kim Komando Show. Every week, Kim gives you the very latest tech news, tips, DIYs, and we take your questions on the Kim Komando Show. We're on over 400 radio stations nationwide, and we do have that as a podcast that you can get directly to your device. We'll find out more. Just go to getkim.com. That's getkim.com. All right, let's get started in just a few moments. Joe Pag's interview with Kim on Komando On Demand Insider. Komando listeners know technology moves so fast it's almost impossible to keep up with everything that's going on, and that's why there's Komando On Demand Insider. It's our way of keeping you informed and on the cutting edge of technology. And we're excited today to have Joe Pag's interview with Kim Komando.
Great radio stations across the land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. It's all right there. Also, the live video feed. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have back my good friend and digital goddess. It's Kim Komando. How are you, Kim?
I'm good, Joe. Nice to see you.
Good to see you again. Happy New Year. Komando.com, go there. Incredible information. I love the contract that you signed with your kids to make sure that they're safe on the internet. Make sure and you get that done. We talked about this just a minute ago. I'm watching the Super Bowl yesterday, and I don't watch a whole lot of football, but I watched the Super Bowl. It's an event for the family. And there were several commercials about 5G. Yeah. And I think some of the commercials thought that we knew what it was. And I think some of the commercials were, there was one commercial that said 5G is great, but it won't save your life. It was all very weird. So, Kim, what is 5G? Why do I care? And why is it like omnipresent suddenly?
Well, see, here's the deal. Like we had like 3G, 4G, 4G LTE, and now we have 5G. And every time that we increase the G, so to speak, is that it's a greater transmission speed. And so, like, for example, if you wanted to watch, say, an HD movie on your phone or your tablet right now, you'd sit there, you'd queue it up, and then it would, like, slowly but surely start playing, right?
Right.
But with 5G...
we get a lot of buffering. Yeah.
Right. But that's all gone. With 5G, it's like, boom, instantaneous. It's right there.
Wow.
And it's not just with movies, because as the 5G world rolls out, what we're really looking at is, for example, like smart cars will actually be able to talk to each other. It's hard to believe, but you know, the tire manufacturer Pirelli, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pirelli is coming out with smart tires. And you're always sitting there like, oh, why do we need smart tires? Well, if the smart tires actually get involved in an accident, or if they see a pothole or whatever it may be, is now the cars will be able to talk to each other through the tires. But you'll also, the cars will be talking to each other about accidents, about traffic, and even telling each other, like, you know, this is a great restaurant coming up ahead. And so it's really going to revolutionize that aspect of our lives, but also medical tech, science tech, air tech, I mean, you name it. This is going to be a total disruption, say, for the next 5 to 10 years.
It's interesting. I don't know that I want my tires talking to other tires, but if it's a good thing at the end of the day, that sounds good. Let me ask you this, because you are, like I am, an iPhone user. Apple did not put 5G in the latest iPhone, so I'm still on a 7 Plus. I mean, I didn't even go to the 8 or the 10 or the XR, this and that and the other. And I certainly love the look of the 11. I'd like to have one, but why would I spend the money now if they don't have the latest technology in it?
Well, it's not just the phone. You also need to have the coverage. And so whether you use AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, you name it, is that you want to look at the coverage map to see if you can even get 5G. Like here in Phoenix, it's a big city, right? I mean, but yet if I want to get 5G, I actually have to go downtown near the convention center in order to get 5G. You're right. Apple's kind of behind the 8 ball when it starts coming to 5G. And so we're hoping that with the next iteration of the iPhone, say, get announced in June at the Worldwide Developer Conference, and then we'll start seeing the hardware. It always is around September, October timeframe, is that we'll finally have a 5G phone because we'll finally have 5G coverage.
The 7 Plus is so bad. And it's a good phone, but it's so bad. I can't even wirelessly, charge this thing. You still have to plug it in. So I'm ready for the next iteration. I don't want to go Samsung because I'm used to, FaceTime and everything else now, and I can jailbreak my iPhone and all that. Kim, always great information. Let's get into the coronavirus. If you go online, the coronavirus, and we'll talk about fake news in a second, is it's everywhere now. But AI, you say, is taking on the coronavirus. In what way?
Well, see, here's the deal, is that now we have artificial intelligence. 15 years ago, we had the SARS problem, right? But we didn't have AR, and that also, the internet wasn't exactly what it is today. So now with the coronavirus and using artificial intelligence is that we can scan news networks, 100,000 different stories in 65 languages every single day. And that includes tweets and Facebook posts and things like that to try to figure out if there's an epidemic coming. And so AI is totally playing a huge role in this coronavirus. And people are saying, yes, it's a pandemic. And a lot of people don't know what that means. It just means, well, I don't know about you, but I'm not going near anybody who has been to China.
Right. And that's a big deal. We've got a couple of cases now in Illinois. And as we watch this, again, it's omnipresent. You know me, I'm kind of a tech dork.
You are.
So I'll go on. Yeah, exactly. I'll go on Twitch and I'll watch some gamers play Fortnite. I like Fortnite. And these people are all talking about the coronavirus. You go on TikTok, they're all talking about coronavirus. The problem is, it's good that we're all aware of it. The problem is, though, we have no idea what to believe. So fake news has gotten a hold of this entire story. How do we sift through that and figure out what's real?
That's the problem, Joe. And, we don't have to talk about being a cheap geek because you could have gotten the iPhone 11. But we'll save it for another time. When we start talking about fake news online, like, for example, one YouTube video accused the so-called deep state of using the coronavirus to draw attention away from President Trump's impeachment trial. Okay,
it's crazy.
Google has reported that searches for the coronavirus and the Corona beer have increased more than 1,050%. The beer is safe, by the way. There's fake CDC alerts that are being spread. And then there's also one that says that Microsoft CEO Bill Gates funded the group that owns the coronavirus patent. So therefore, he's scheduled to make a profit from it. When we all know that the worst thing that Bill Gates ever released on the public, I think, was Windows Vista.
Windows ME was pretty horrible.
Oh, you know what?
Tell you something.
There was that. What was the other one? Oh, you remember Bob? Microsoft Bob? I think that was out for just like a nanosecond.
Or you could have gotten the Zune if you wanted to compete with the iPad or with the iPod. It just didn't work out either.
You know what? The Zune wasn't bad. I got to tell you, the Zune was not bad.
It just didn't sell, but it didn't sell. That was the problem, right?
Yeah, well, there was that.
So how do we know whether it's a safe source? If it sounds nuts, it probably is as a good way to start. But how do we know what we're getting is real? Just stick to resources that we normally would use?
Like the World Health Organization, the CDC website.
Yeah. And you've got to be very careful with that. And this has nothing to do with the coronavirus, but you'll notice at the end of Shark Tank now, the sharks will actually say, hey, there are a lot of ads out there that are fake saying that our products were their product was on our show. Go to this website. You can check and see. So go to the source, like the World Health Organization. That's going to be very helpful, the CDC. But you're right. People can write anything they want on the internet, say anything they want on the internet. I had 5 different accounts sent to me last week about a guy using my pictures to try to pick up women in Brazil.
Nice.
So, I guess I did pretty well in Brazil, but I had no clue. At the end of the day, the internet is so great, but it's also a vast wasteland where anonymous people can take advantage of those of us who aren't paying attention. That's really the message, right?
Well, it is. And stop being so gullible, right? And look at this and say, oh, yeah, that must be true. Now, that CDC alert was actually sent to me by somebody who was a CEO of a hospital. Okay.
Wow.
And said, this is on social media. And then I wrote him back. I said, sorry, buddy, it's fake news.
Yeah. Go to the actual CDC. It's Kim Komando. Go to komando.com. Download everything that she's ever done. Listen to her radio show on over 400 stations every week. And also on television. Go check that out, too. It's amazing. I love your set. You have to let me do my show from your set at some point. Can I do that?
You're always welcome, Joe. But not with that iPhone 7. Ban you at the door. First. No,
that's
way.
Right. I don't blame you. TikTok, I'm on it now. I've got one video. I went to the daddy-daughter dance over the weekend with my daughter Gia, and I posted one video from the daddy-daughter dance. I've got 5 views now, so I'm knocking it out.
Maybe you were just a crappy dancer.
No, that's not a maybe. Oh, no, that actually happened, Kim. So I've got a TikTok. It's becoming something that's everywhere now. The kids love it. What's the draw of TikTok? And what about these challenges? People are getting hurt.
Well, you have the TikTok, and they're like short 15-second videos. And the whole idea is that we now live in a society where we have the attention span of a gnat, right? And so if the video is more than a minute, we're like, I'm not into that. So now in order to do certain things, like you remember the ice bucket challenge, well, now we have these TikTok challenges. And there's one that's circulating that's getting really a lot of traction. It's where you're supposed to plug in a charger into the power outlet, but not all the way. And then you slide a penny into the exposed prongs. Okay, yes, sparks will fly. Yeah, I know. I don't know who's the genius behind that one, but people are actually getting shocked, literally. So you definitely don't want to do that. And then there's another one. This is kind of strange, and this is primarily being spread among people who are in their teens and maybe late teens and early 20s. And so this one is that there's a filter. It's called the S5 filter. And so you're supposed to run this filter and then look into your phone's flash. And when you do this, your eye color will change. Okay. That's not how your eye color changes. Okay. So you get a temporary blindness, but yet people are swearing that this does happen. But the S5 filter, what it does, it gives a hint of blue to anything that you're looking at. And so your eyes will change color, but your eyes really won't change color. It's just happening in the TikTok video. I know it's so bizarre. And so what we need is a filter for common sense. That's exactly.
And that's not going to be available for a while, I don't think. It's Kim Komando, the digital goddess, Komando.com. But before I let you go, do you have any thoughts on how these people are getting so viral? Like there's this one girl, Charlie D'Amelio, who went from 0 viewers to like 25 million, it seems like in 2 months. Is it just that somebody likes a video and then it really is organic like that? Does a website like TikTok push a certain person? How does that work?
You know, it's really hard to say because they don't release their algorithms, just like Google doesn't release their algorithms, right? And so, you know, the whole general thought is that if you could get somebody who's more famous than you to share and like your video, which if anybody's watching us right now, you know, and you happen to have 25 million views, you should be sharing what I do and what Joe does. I mean, you know, support the family. Come on, let's go. You know, do they buy views? Sometimes. Do they buy influencers? Yes, they do. It's really very difficult. I had a lunch meeting with a guy who founded Creative Artists of America, CAA. And we were just talking about YouTube and stuff. And he said, you know, probably the days of becoming a YouTube influencer, they're probably over. But now we have new things that are happening like TikTok. And there's also a Google competitor that's also going to be branching out called Tinga that we're actually part of the beta testing. And that should be giving it a run for its money as well.
I'd like to check that out. It's Kim Komando. Go to Komando.com. I always appreciate the time, Kim.
You got it.
Can we do it again soon?
Sure. You betcha, Joe. Anytime.
Hey, remember, Kim answers your questions on the air, and it's really easy. If you have a tough question that you're dealing with, something digital, you can get unbiased tech advice that you can trust. Just go to Komando.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click on Be a Caller. We're going to ask you a couple of questions about your question, and then a producer will get back in touch with you so we can set you up for a call on the show. We appreciate it. And up next, the new Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, California is being called the Hospital of the Future because of all the technology that they're using to help make their patients have a better experience. We'll hear from the Vice President and Chief of Applications at New Stanford Hospital, Gary Fritz, next on Komando On Demand Insider. This is Komando On Demand, where we talk to some of the most influential people in technology, the innovators that shape the future and trailblazers who challenge and inspire us to do amazing things. Nobody wants to be in the hospital. As a matter of fact, the number one goal when you check into a hospital is to get checked out. And today we're going to learn about technology that can help people get better faster using technology, how technology is changing the way that people are being treated in hospitals. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the new Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, California. It's being called the Hospital of the Future. Over $2 billion to build, 824,000 square feet. New level 1 trauma center and emergency department are more than 368 private rooms, over 600 private rooms overall, 3 acres of floor space. This goes on and on. 20 operating rooms, 5 gardens with walking trails. That sounds pretty nice. And we're joined by Gary Fritz, who's the Vice President and Chief of Applications at the new Stanford Hospital. Mr. Fritz, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Komando On Demand.
Good afternoon, Mike. It's a delight to talk to you.
And you're the IT guy, the background guy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the Chief of Applications, so I handle all the software at the Stanford Healthcare, in particular the new Stanford Hospital. My counterparts, Christian Lundmark is the CTO. He handles the infrastructure. Johan Vettas does applications, and Aditya Basun does our custom software development. So we have a very strong team that supports the new Stanford Hospital.
So we're going to get into the specifics of medical technology, of course, but how has technology in general changed the way that people are being treated in hospitals and for medical conditions?
It's transformational from the patient perspective, from the perspective of the direct caregiver, doctors and nurses, and from the support staff, the pharmacists, the people that work in the supply chain, folks that support direct caregivers. The new Stanford Hospital has automated or advanced the technology in really all of those areas. It, of course, starts with the patient. So a patient is first introduced to Stanford typically through their physician or their clinician, and they have often a My Health application. It's an application that runs on iPhone, Android devices, and it's the patient portal. So they connect to their doctor and to the entire health system through that portal. We've developed a new version of that portal with the new Stanford Hospital that allows the patient to see what will happen to them for them before they arrive at the hospital. It follows them through their patient journey and helps them get discharged. As you mentioned earlier in the segment, it is very important that the patient is here to be taken care of, but ultimately they'd like to go home well or better, and technology supports that.
I'd like to get into that app a little bit later in the interview, and certainly we will. But from a patient's point of view, now you're talking about a technological hospital here. When they check in, are they checked in by a robot? How does that work?
Sure, great question. There's a whole range of options. If a patient is scheduled for surgery and they are technology, they're connected to us through My Health as an example, they can be automatically arrived or e-arrived as they walk in. We have location awareness systems, so they transition from being an outpatient or being a consumer to an inpatient, and we share with them their information. So the human touch is extremely important. They are certainly met, patients are met by our patient access people at the front door or in the emergency department or wherever, taken care of, taken to the rooms, and they begin their journey at the hospital. But technology underpins that both directly for the patient, for their family members, and for the people that are taking care of them.
So you mentioned emergency services. Are there special things in your emergency service that you might not find somewhere else, like, I don't know, coordination with the ambulances as they're coming in, with the hospitals and doctors, and or anything like that?
Well, that's a great question. So this emergency department, the new one, is 3 times the size of the previous ED. We're a level 1 trauma center, which means we take care of the sickest patients, and we are designated for if there is a disaster in the area. So we've designed the emergency department to scale many different ways. We are in a seismically active area, Northern California, of course. So this This new hospital is designed to withstand an 8.0 earthquake, which is incredible. It actually is engineered so the ground can move up to 6 feet in any direction, and the hospital remains still. So we're going to be there taking care of patients in the event of an emergency. So we've designed the hospital to support day-to-day operations and also significant traumatic events or disasters.
I believe somewhere that they said that the parking lot is actually been designed for that if needed as well.
That's exactly right. We have a 3-story parking structure we built next to the hospital, and it's designed with technology, passive technology in the background, that if there isn't a situation where a disaster or a mass casualty event, the entire parking structure can be converted into an emergency department. So we've already got wireless access points there, power, various other things that you need in order to scale up to a significant event. It's a remarkable building.
It is. It's very cool. Now, the new Stanford Hospital also, I read, takes a holistic approach, which is like the whole body approach to getting well, which is, I think, a little bit different than the old-fashioned way of having separate departments and working on different things. Is the design of the hospital any different than a traditional hospital?
Well, it is. It is designed to take care of patients of all ranges, including the sickest patients, and it's an integrated model. So nurses and doctors, of course, are working closely together. Pharmacists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. They not only work directly with the patient and with each other, but they use technology to connect to each other to support that patient journey. So we're delivering great care, but we're also using secure communications to connect doctors and nurses. We're using robotic systems to deliver linens and laundry to and from the new hospital. We're filling prescriptions with robots in our pharmacy. So we've thoughtfully selected advanced technologies to support collaborative care.
To that end, how is artificial intelligence being used to run the hospital and make it more efficient?
Yeah, we're at the front end of that. That's a great question. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is really coming into all aspects of technology at hospitals, in patient access, to improve access to clinicians, with supporting areas like the lab and radiology, also into patient rooms. So Stanford has really a couple of missions, and just sort of to back up a little bit. Stanford Healthcare is part of Stanford Medicine, which is chartered to deliver great patient care, educate the next generation of doctors, and also to create medical advancements, to do research and push the boundaries of medicine. In that area, Stanford researchers are doing quite a bit with artificial intelligence. That would be in radiology, in design, in a number of areas. We're using the new Stanford Hospital, which has only been open a couple of months, as both a platform for innovation. So we're collecting data from the hospital and the interactions in the hospital, but our physician researchers are then using that data to apply it into the hospital. We're just at the front end of that. But our 104 new ICUs are being wired with vision systems and thermal imaging systems. So ultimately, with the patient consent, they will be used to identify clinical behaviors. Ultimately, AI systems will then influence those behaviors or provide information for the physicians so they can influence the behavior.
Yeah, it's this whole, you actually mentioned the pharmacy using robotics is completely fascinating. Our guest is Mr. Gary Fritz. He's the Vice President and Chief of Applications at the new Stanford Hospital. Up next, we're going to talk about some of the little robots they've got running around at the hospital, as well as they are tracking patients and healthcare professionals at the hospital where they are at any moment. We're going to find out if there's been any pushback from that and how that all works. Next on Komando On Demand. It's Komando On Demand, and our special guest this week is Gary Fritz. He's the Vice President and Chief of Applications at the new Stanford Hospital. Before we left, we wanted to get into the little robots. You guys have little robots running around at the hospital?
Well, it's a great question. So we have 28 automated guided vehicles. So imagine the new Stanford Hospital next to the previous one, both running fully. And also connected to Lucile Packard's Children's Hospital. So we've got close to 4 million square feet of hospital and clinic here, and we have one loading dock. So as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of back office activities that need to occur. Things like delivering clean linen to the floors, taking dirty laundry, med gases, things like that. We measured the distance from the loading dock to the farthest point in the new hospital, and the round trip is 1.3 miles. Mm-hmm. So we realized that's not really something that is particularly enriching and for a person to do. So we thought, let's use robotic vehicles to deliver things to the floors or to the places they need to go. And we're starting out with relatively simple things, as I said, clean linen and dirty laundry, but we're going to be advancing that so we can deliver quite a few things, making it just easier for our clinicians and our back office folks to talk to the patient and to be with the patient and really take those routine tasks away. So 28 total vehicles, 23 of them for the new Stanford Hospital and 5 of them for Lucile Packard Children's Hospital.
As technology advances, it's getting more and more easy to put little chips on whatever they are, phones or your wrists or whatever, to kind of keep better track of what's going on in your hospital. And there was one thing in here that said that sensors will track the location of staff and equipment in real time, which is great. But have you had any pushback from staff about, I don't want you to know where I am at all times, or is there any limitations there that you have to watch out for?
Well, a little bit. The thing that you need to think about, or we think about with location sensors for staff, is the safety component of it. And when you imagine being in an emergency department that's very active, very sick patients, a lot of emotion. If a nurse or a doctor needs help, if they're with a patient alone and in a room, they need to be able to get help quickly. And the RTLS sensors have a button on them. You can press it, and it's a staff assist. So other clinicians come, or security, or whomever it is. So it actually creates a safer environment, which is useful. Beyond that, we're able to use this location sensing technology to take some of the other routine tasks off the plate of the nurse or the aide or whomever. So an example, might be a patient in a room. Presses the nurse call button to have a nurse come in and do something. That sound and just sort of managing nurse call can be difficult and somewhat onerous for both the patient and the nurse. The RTLS sensors are integrated here with our nurse call system. So as the nurse walks into the patient room, it automatically turns off the alarm. So the nurse doesn't have to navigate to the head wall of the bed and try to find the button to deal with that. So what we've tried to do with RTLS type location services is make it just a little easier to function in the hospital.
What does RTLF stand for?
Real-time location sensors. So
Okay.
real-time location services, actually. We also use it, by the way, for biomedical equipment. So a certain percentage of the time each day, a nurse or an aide is looking for a mobile piece of equipment, whether it's an infusion pump or some sort of telemetry device or whatnot. We've asset tagged those devices, so we can tell you to room level accuracy where the devices are, and that takes a little bit more burden off of the nurses and the aides as well.
I need that on everything in my house. Please. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so going back to the app, what does it do? First, you can even turn the app on and find out what's going to happen before you get to the hospital. But from there, what happens, and how much can you share with family and friends and members that might be worried about the patient?
You can, and patients do allow proxy access to their family members and close caregivers. And when you sort of think about it, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're a patient who is ill, maybe seriously ill, you may want your family member or caregiver to have information that can help you get better, to improve communication and to move the care process along. So My Health, developed here at Stanford, has a number of interesting components to it, and I'll share a couple with you. So the patient experience at a hospital starts before, sometimes long before they get to the hospital. My Health presents information to the patient or the caregiver about their stay, what will happen when they need to be here, the registration, that sort of thing. But the interesting thing that has been added, or feature we've added to My Health, is as a patient transitions, they enter the front door, the lobby, and they become an inpatient, we give them a whole other set of applications. Their iPhone or their Android device dynamically changes, in the background, and they're able to then have more information about their journey inside the hospital. So they get a map that has a blue dot turn-by-turn directions. If they choose to go to their room directly without a Stanford person, they can navigate themselves there, much like Google Maps for a building. But then the question really is, how do you demystify the healthcare experience? So we also present all the members of the care team. So the names and pictures of the doctors and nurses and other people that are taking care of the patient. And we know that because our electronic health system has it inside of it. So when a physician or nurse is working on a shift, they're in there, and when the next person that takes over for the next shift, they become available. So the patient or the family member knows exactly who's taking care of that patient at any given time. That is an important idea because it helps as a frame of reference. It certainly doesn't replace in-person connections, but it helps to know the name and the picture.
I know your time is limited. I just have a couple of more questions. Sure. I find this fascinating. And again, thank you for being with us. You mentioned the Apple Watch and the app on the Apple Watch and how it kind of changes it. Does the medical staff trust the information? Like the new Apple Watches can do ECG. Of course, they can take the pulse, and I don't know if they can do probably blood pressure. Does the medical community there actually trust that information on the Apple Watch, or for that matter, Android watches and some of the stuff that they can get?
I won't speak for the medical community, but I will say that the Apple Heart Study, which is most often quoted about that, there's about 400,000 patients or people that were part of the Apple Heart Study. Mm-hmm. That was designed and administered by 2 Stanford physicians. So we are, professionally obligated to talk a little bit about that. I think it's a game changer. Wearables like that give access to information to both the person that's wearing them and their care team in ways we're only beginning to understand now. The studies that are starting to come out, like the Apple Heart Study, suggest that it is possible to identify more quickly and more accurately significant heart issues as they occur. That is amazing. So when we're thinking about how technology works outside of the hospital in the larger sense, Stanford, we do invest a significant amount of time and energy into thinking about wearables and virtual health and ways that you can extend great care beyond the walls of the hospital.
I know you remember a while back the security issues. There was malware at a hospital, took all the files hostage, and I can only imagine for this hospital all the files that I don't know if you have them locally or do you do the cloud or some kind of both. But can you talk about that for a little bit, and then the security that you guys use to make sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands? Yeah,
there's security at any hospital is a very significant discussion and a very significant issue. It is focused on by both IT leadership and operational leadership, and in fact has very senior exposure. So So we at Stanford, of course, take security very, very seriously, and we have a strong security program that focuses on protection of data and continuity of care, and that's really the most important thing that a health system can do.
What is the most impressive piece of equipment? What does it do that you've seen there and that you just amazes you?
The technology that's in the operating rooms right now is just jaw-dropping. Neurosurgery, for example, a couple of parts to that. Neurosurgeons are using 3D virtual reality to design how they're going to evaluate a tumor and how they're going to proceed with the surgery. Those 3D VR reconstructions are available to patients to help them understand, their journey, and that information is used in the ORs. I was reading actually yesterday about it from a communication inside Stanford Medicine about an amazing new technology that one of our oncologist scientists has developed, and it when put into a patient, it's a targeted dye that connects only to the tumor in a patient's brain, and when a certain light is shined on it, it fluoresces, so you can actually see specifically the tumor in the brain, so the neurosurgeon can be more effective. There are game-changing technologies that are coming through the operating rooms and through neurosurgical, cardiovascular surgery, orthopedic surgery. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that's almost my last question there is kind of what is the future of medical technology? Do you see anything that really makes you excited? I mean, more than you just talked about?
Precision medicine and precision health is amazing. Developing drugs that target specific disease conditions or tumors specifically for a patient are being engineered now. It's absolutely incredible. Gene sequencing and working through how one understands inheritable diseases is just amazing. The other thing, though, that we're talking about very sophisticated technologies, items like virtual health, connecting to your doctor through, a Skype session or a WebEx that allows patients who can't necessarily get to that in person with that physician access to world-class medical care is really changing the way technology is about where healthcare is delivered using technology. Oh. It's a remarkable field
for both sides. Yeah, absolutely. Gary Fritz, Vice President and Chief of Applications at New Stanford Hospital. Thank you so much for being on Komando On Demand. We got a lot of great information here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
If you'd like more information on the New Stanford Hospital, just go to stanfordhealthcare.org. That's stanfordhealthcare.org. We thank again Gary Fritz. Also, Joe Pags for letting us use the Komando interview. I want to, of course, thank Kim Komando for letting me help out here on the podcast. And we all want to thank you for listening. If you love the information that you hear on these podcasts, don't forget to subscribe so that you get these episodes downloaded to your device every single week, even as you sleep. And we'll see you next time on Komando On Demand Insider. Take care.